Hi, I want to tell you about a piece of curriculum that we do extracurricularly at Loudon Codes and where it came from. I'm about to start it up again this summer, and the story is kind of a fascinating one as to where it came from. In the spring of 2015, I had a student who was taking the Intro to Computer Science class at Loudon Valley approach me and say, "Mr. Bach, I want to build a computer this summer." And at first I thought he was talking about, modern parts off of some website, Amazon or Newegg, and build a gaming PC. And my initial reaction was, I really haven't done anything like that in a long time. I'm sure there's plenty of sources online where you can get advice on parts and how to assemble it and all that kind of stuff. And he said, no, I want to go lower level than that. I actually want to design something with chips and build the motherboard. And I explained that you can't really do that with modern parts. They're way too sensitive, you need specialized equipment, the distances matter down to millimeters, it's a really complicated undertaking. But then I told him I did something like that when I was in high school back in the 80s. And I remembered that I had a book. I went home, searched through my basement, and brought it to school. It's called Build Your Own Z80 Microcomputer. And back in the 80s, I built this, and a few parts of it still survive to this day, but it's not in any runnable state. In fact, in the back of the book is even the parts list from when I ordered the parts. And I paid $42 back in 1986 for the parts to build this computer. And so I explained to him that, I don't know that the modern parts were still available or these legacy parts were still available, if we could build a computer like that these days, but, I'd be interested in trying with him. Well, he found somebody online that made a modern kit based on the details of this book. And so that summer, he and a couple other students each got their own kit, and we all assembled them. And it was a blast, and I'm going to show it to you right now. What we're looking at here is a modern kit based on that book. This is from a website, cpuville.com, and the guy who builds this, a guy named Don Stewart, lives here in Northern Virginia, so he's actually come out to some of our events and spoken to our students. It's kind of neat to have such a valuable resource right in our own backyard. But what we're looking at here is a computer circa 1983. Z80 processor, 2K of ROM, 2K of RAM, clock, some support logic chips, a display bus, and then input in the form of these switches, and output in the form of these lights. We can get an expansion kit and actually run CP/M, an operating system before the days of DOS, on this thing. And that's a cool expansion, but that's not typically how we start this thing. But the neat thing about this kit is that I can poke it with a logic probe that we also build. So you'll see I'll come in here and touch one of these chips, and you'll see that I can watch the value on that line go high, low, high, low, high, low in binary. So we can actually get inside this computer and understand what each chip, what each line is doing. So let's look at the display bus. We have our address lines that are talking about what location in memory we're looking at. We have the data that's flowing in and out of memory. And then we have some control lines that talk about what's going on inside the processor. This blinking light here that's blinking, about 4 times a second, it's a little hard to see in the video you're looking at, that's the clock. So 4 times a second, this processor is going, give me that memory. Okay, let me do that processing. Okay, let me put that back. Okay, give me that next piece of memory. Let me do the next thing. And it just sits there doing that. And every now and then, you're going to see the I/O request light go high, the write line go high, and 1 will be added to this binary representation. So any second, we're going to see that light turn on. At this speed, it happens about once every 20 seconds or so. And there it goes. And we can actually follow along with the program and understand exactly what it's doing. Further, we can write our own programs with this. And believe it or not, we write our programs, we convert them to binary, we sit here with a little pencil and flip them in and toggle them into memory, and then we can set our program running, and we can see our own display on these lights. We can basically program this thing to do anything. In fact, when we get it up and running CP/M, it can beat us in chess, which fascinates me that I can understand what every chip is doing on this board, every wire on this board, and it can still somehow beat me at chess. So why is this so much better than anything else we could do? First of all, Retrocomputing is a hot topic in education right now, not because of any great curriculum that anyone's developed, but because students are reading books like The Martian and Ready Player One. They're fascinated with this era of build something yourself out of scrappy parts and what was available computing wise in the 80s. It's just a popular topic. But let's compare it to some of the other modern devices you see in curriculum. This is an Arduino Mega. It's actually a clone, but it's exactly the same thing. And it's a really cool thing for educational kits. You give it power, you can plug it into USB. It's got all these little lines where you can build stuff to plug into it. But all the magic for this thing happens inside that one big chip. This thing is hundreds to thousands of times more powerful than this computer, depending on how you measure it. But it's all bundled up in that chip. We can't poke it and understand what's going on. This is a much better lab rat in a curriculum because I can understand exactly what every chip is doing. For theory of computation, this thing is awesome to sit down and understand. This, very useful tool in education, but you can't get inside of it. By the same token, this is an Arduino Nano. Much smaller version of this, but same idea. All of the magic is happening inside these little chips, and you just can't get in there with a little logic probe and understand what's going on. And then finally, this is a Raspberry Pi. It's attached to the back of a flat screen monitor, but this is a pretty powerful little computer. This is basically a processor out of a cell phone put onto a computer that you can attach to a monitor. It's got USB, so you can attach keyboards and mice and an Ethernet port. This is a fully functional computer with an awesome little bus here, and only costs about $50. So it's great educationally priced. You can learn a lot with it, but you can't get inside that chip like we can with this one. I can teach students the lower levels of programming and even hardware design in a way that's approachable. So let's go back to this computer and look at one more thing. This thing right now, that clock is blinking at 4 hertz. That's 4 blinks a second. So this processor is sitting here going really slow. 4 times a second it's going ping pong, ping pong, ping pong between memory and RAM and processing and display on the lights. And as you can see, I've been sitting here chatting for a while and it's counted to 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. If we give it a second, we'll see it advance up to 33. Rather than wait for that, I'm going to show you up here with these switches. I can turn the processor off, put it to what's called halt. And now it's no longer looking at addresses, it's no longer reading memory. The clock is still blinking away. So now I'm going to turn on the fast clock, turn off the slow clock. And now it looks like that clock light is just on steady. This is 2 million hertz. So 2 megahertz. So 2 million times a second that clock is blinking on and off. Let's see how fast these lights change now. Whoa. You can't even see it down here. It's a blur. Before we waited 20 seconds just for one. Now it's almost counted. When they all light up, it'll be at 65,536. And it just did it once. It's about to do it again. So this is now 2 million times, maybe 500,000 to 1 million times faster than we just saw it running a second ago. And the neat thing is we can slow it down, poke it with a stick, understand what's going on, and then speed it up and understand exactly what's happening that fast. And this computer is nothing compared to a modern computer. There's a computer as powerful as this in the battery pack charger for a laptop you might own. This thing is primitive by modern standards. So every year now, since 2015, I've had 2 or 3 students build these computers every year, sometimes over winter break, sometimes over summer break. Well, this summer, I have 5 students who are going to be meeting at the Purcellville Library to build these computers. And building them, actually, we learn how things work on a breadboard, we understand each part, and then we solder it into that board and build those computers. And in a future video, I'm going to be showing how we do that. I'm going to be showing you the kits we're going to be working on this year, and I hope to document that process a little bit more this year than we have in years past for those who might want to learn what we're doing or those that might want to follow along at home. Thanks. I look forward to seeing you.